latter one. Have you got video?
I do, but I guess why turn it on if nobody's there?
All right. We'll see if anyone shows up.
Yeah, if they do, let me know. I'll turn it on. But
have you got video? Oh, let me mute that bad boy.
I do.
Right, okay. Don't need to hear myself twice. Right, let's pull up this. Then we can roll into it if you're ready.
Yeah, I'm all ready, dude.
Oh, shit. Let me start record. That would be painful.
Let me do that on my end, too.
Testicles.
Oh, the audacity of this program.
Good evening, listeners, and welcome to live news for October of 2019. It's looking like it's just going to be the OGs for this one. I'm here and Scott's here. Random Dave is feeling under the weather, so he's stepped away. And we're not sure if Sparkle Puss is going to join or not at some point. So for now...
Personally, I think it's his lack of protein in his diet.
I would think so. That's what a plant-based diet does for you. So you've got the OGs for now, at least.
Didn't have the energy to make it.
No. He's laying on a sofa somewhere whimpering. So this last month, since we last spoke, I've been a busy little bee. So, as you know, I've mentioned before, my house was for sale, Paula's was for sale, we're buying a new one. So Paula's completed on Friday just gone. So we had a few days this week moving her into mine. So we're both currently cohabiting. And so my sale is still progressing. The new house isn't ready yet. So I'm hoping mine goes through when the new one's ready. Otherwise, it may be a caravan-based Christmas. But we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. So been busy boxing shit up. All our lives are in storage at the moment, pretty much, and we're just waiting. But prior to that, there was, of course, 80s Camborne Retro Video Game Night down at the Hub in Camborne, so I went down for that. It was a good night. We got quite a few people in, good few systems set up, reasonably small room, but big enough for what it was. He's considering using another room in the place that's a bit bigger, but it's kind of on the crossover. You don't want a small room to be full or a big room to be empty. So he's got another one coming up, November the 29th. I'm not able to make it to that. I'm going to a wedding on that day, but I think he's going to have two Bens there. And if you're able to make it, then you should go down. It's well worth it. And there I discovered a few Wii U games, because I've played one briefly before, but played some Mario Kart. There was a competition there, and I'd never really played it before, I don't think, on the Wii U, and it's a decent version. So played a few rounds of that and a few various other things. There was a Vectrex there, one of his neighbours that he found through Facebook, or who found him through Facebook, is a fellow collector, so he has a ton of systems, and I think he took along a C64, a Spectrum, and a Vectrex, but he's got all sorts of stuff. Pretty knowledgeable guy, very friendly, very nice guy, so it was good to see him. And, of course, Ian was running the competitions, and we had Lord Conrad's beer on draft, so it was a good night. So if you're able to make it to the next one, make sure you do. And that is probably about it for me. Not much gaming, not really had the time. So I think that's just about it for me.
So how is the new house looking? Is it kind of done, or?
So we had a meeting last week. It's this thing they call Meet the Builder. So you go in there. It's a good idea, actually. So you go in once they've done the first fix. So all your plumbing's in, your electrics are in, but they've not yet what you might call drywalled. So they've not plastered it yet. So you can go in there, take pictures of where all the piping is, where all the cables are. So when you go in the future and start drilling holes to put pictures up, you don't go through a pipe. And they've got a few little tricks they do as well. So you can buy these sensors that detect metal behind the wall. And if it's like a plastic pipe running down the wall, they'll put metallic tape behind it so Essential will still pick it up. And at the top and bottom of joists where there's cables kind of in the free space in the cavity in a studded wall, they'll put a little metal plate at floor level and ceiling level so you can detect those. And it's just a walk around to see where everything is, make sure all the extras you've ordered are going in there. And so asking the builder, they won't guarantee anything, obviously. They don't know what's around the corner. But he says he thinks it will be December. So they won't tell you that officially because, you want to be in for Christmas and you'll be pushing them. It shouldn't be too much weather affected now because obviously it's watertight, the roof's on, the windows and doors are on, so they're just working away inside. And unless there are any unforeseen circumstances, we're hoping it will be December.
Oh, nice. I mean, it looks really good from all the pictures I've seen. It looks, I don't know, like, fairly large for the UK, above average, and looks like you should be able to fit in some nice machines in amongst all of Paula's frilly, fluffy, fuzzy, curly things.
All the twee things, yeah. Yeah. So the garage is pretty much mine. So that is going to be studio, arcade, game room, and all of that. So all that will go in there. I've measured it out roughly and sort of done a quick plot of what machines can go where. And hopefully I'll have room for a pinball because I fancy another real pinball. Might try and pick up a Guns N' Roses.
Oh, great game, man! And if you do grab it, obviously hit me up because you can do some real improvements to the sound system on that really make it pay off.
Yeah, I will do because obviously it doesn't sound as good as the newer music-based tables do. So one of the key things with a music-based game is the sound. So yeah, I'll probably look to pick one of those up in the new year at some point. It'll take us a while to get settled and all our shit unboxed and get the garage free. So it's a while away yet, but that's probably one of my favourite games. So that'll be the one I'll go for, I think.
Well, congratulations, and I hope it's smooth from here on out because it sure does look like a nice place there. So I have been up to a little modern gaming, retro gaming, just doing some normal maintenance on machines and all that, trying to hunt for parts I still can't find, the usual stuff with all the classics. Gonna have a retro gaming weekend coming up soon at Powers Brewery. It's about 30 miles west of Washington, D.C., in Northern Virginia. I'm hoping, we'll have it done soon. What's going on is my friends out there at the brewery are expanding. They're building a new events building, right? And it's going to basically double the size of the brewery and its hospitality space. So once that's done, we're going to, set up a gaming weekend and truck over a whole bunch of games from my place and, have a go at it. So, think about it. It's kind of like, as Mike was saying with construction projects, I don't want to commit to anything. The frame's up, the roof's up, foundation's poured. It could be 30 days. It could be 120 days. You never know. So, that said, I will give more information here on the show. We'll put it up on the Facebook page and all that. And I certainly hope many of you can attend. We might even get Sparklepuss to get off his ass and drive 3.5, 4 hours to do something once for the show. So that would be nice. Just saying, Sparklepuss.
Yeah.
So I ran it. There was a couple games I had on order that hadn't arrived yet, and some have been pushed, like the Cyberpunk game and all. And I just I didn't have anything to play. I mean, I'd gone back and beaten Fallout 4 again. So, I kind of got into Fallout 4 just making all sorts of wonky choices and siding with factions I hadn't sided with. And it's all, good fun. But, okay, I've beaten it like 6 times. So I was looking for something to do until one of these games I had really anticipated was available. So I picked up 3 games, just, literally pulled at a GameStop, walked in, walked out 5 minutes later with 3 games for like, $30. And the 3 I picked up were Alien Isolation, Prey, and Dying Light. So first off, I've talked quite a bit lately about how improved the accessibility as to non-double thumb gamers. Um, Dying Light, not so much. Lots of really difficult jumps, uh, and it ramps up in difficulty real fast. So I had it basically on super easy story mode, and you find yourself real quick just in impossible situations. You have to go secure this safe house. You hop in, and there's this thing you can't kill, and it's just it escalated in difficulty and difficulty of control way too fast for my liking. So out it came. Throw it on the shelf. The let me turn off this thing before it dings again. So I also picked up Prey, which is basically Bioshock in space. It's a thinly reskinned, veiled Bioshock. Not bad, not great. It's okay. I'll play it. Alien Isolation, pretty good so far. Takes a little while to get into the action, but it's getting there. But of course, then the main one, Outer Worlds, which is of course the Fallout team in their new offices making a new game without the interference that they had on the other. So this is a winner. It is fantastic. Outer Worlds. Love playing this game. I'm zipping around the solar system, doing all sorts of tasks, and I like the aesthetic of it. It's definitely not just Fallout. It's its own thing. It's not Fallout, but like what they're doing so far. So that's kind of what I've been up to. So, Mike, I guess we're ready to get into some stories, huh?
I reckon we can get into some news. Yeah.
I need about a 2-minute pause. I neglected to grab a beverage before we start.
Okay.
So I'm going to do that, and I'll meet you back here like ASAP.
Okay. I shall start with this one then. While Scott's getting a beverage. Sumo Group turns loss to profit in H1 2019. Sumo is a game company in this country. Obviously, Random Dave used to work for them, and since he left, their fortunes have completely reversed. I wonder if there's a link there. I also spotted, I don't know if I submitted it, but the headline will tell you all you need to know. Sumo have also opened another office in this country. They have a few dotted around the place. They've opened one in Warrington, which is not too far from me. In fact, I think it's where Scott asked for directions to at the dogging spot. So Sumo seem to be doing much better since Random Dave left. So yay to that. I'll skip that one till Scott's back. I don't know if he has played that. I'll skip that one, just finding out ones that don't really need Scott's input. This would be another. The Making of Discworld Noir. It is an article on Eurogamer, fairly lengthy article that you can read at your leisure. And that's a game that's on my list to do, but just haven't had the time to sit down and play it. I have got it. I think I've got the box version, actually. Picked it up pretty cheap, because I think they go for quite a bit normally, the Discworld games. So there's an article on the making of that there that you can read. Another one here. Is this also Eurogamer? Yes, it is indeed. Submitted by me. There is a GoldenEye N64 fan remake, and apparently it's coming along nicely. The developer behind the promising GoldenEye fan remake has released a new gameplay video, and it looks great. It's called GoldenEye 25 because it's the 25th anniversary of the game. In 2022, so I'm guessing he's given himself plenty of time to get it finished. But I did watch the gameplay video, and it does look a lot better than the original does these days. At AD's Game Night, there was an N64 setup with 4-player GoldenEye, and in the day, it was, I'm going to say fine. I'm guessing it's hard to think back, but I'm guessing it probably looked a bit ropey back then. But 4-player GoldenEye these days is not a good-looking game. So the fact that there's a fan remake is good news for GoldenEye fans, I think.
So, Mike, I see you got the Discworld and GoldenEye. Are any of those stories above it important, or?
I wanted to see if you tried Mario Kart Tour because it's been voted the worst first-time user experience.
Actually,
Have you
I did,
tried
and it's
it?
funny because I've got a phone, obviously, and all kinds of people I know are like, "Hey, I already downloaded it. I'm ready to go." And then next thing I hear is, "It's awful. I hated it. Boo."
Yeah, I skipped a few because they needed your input. So, aside from having the worst first-time user experience ever, which is a bit of a ball ache because you've got to go in, create an account, and sync it and confirm it and all of that. So it does take you a while to download and get into a game. Once you do, the controls aren't fantastic. I mean, I wasn't that confident they wouldn't be. To be honest, it's a smartphone game, so I think they've done as good a job as they could with the controls, and it's all right. It's playable. I can't imagine when you get onto the harder levels that the controls are going to help you at all. But I did send one here. It had been downloaded over 10 million times in the first day. Then these emails just kept coming. Then it was 20 million in 24 hours, and they just kept going and going. I think it's one of the most downloaded mobile games at the moment now. So one here, play Cuphead on a Tesla. So what do you think about that one, Scott? Playing Cuphead in your car?
Okay, look. Obviously, the Tesla display, which I'll it's funny. I'll kind of just dovetail into some little real quick side excursion here. Uh, I'm a hot rodder. I'm a petrol head, a motor head. I've done supercharged, turbocharged, compound charged, big engines, little engines, engines that turn fast, engines that turn slow. Every kind of hot rodding pretty much there is to do, and still enjoy it. But honestly, I'm ready to play with electric. I really, really, really am ready to play with electric. And so as I'm wrapping up the V8 Miata project, uh, the next project is starting to come to fruition. I'm going to be building an electric motorcycle. The idea being one that is ridiculously fast and actually can go further than around the corner. So I've been, researching EV design, construction, all that quite a bit, and I found a great YouTube channel called Rich Rebuilds. And if you like the idea of electric cars or just want to see a little bit more, it's time to take kind of mystery away from these things, right? When they were experimental, when it was a bunch of sort of, mashed together parts, they were always going to be marginal. They were going to be too expensive for what they were. What had to happen was not that the world came around to the electric vehicle way of thinking. Electric vehicles had to become mainstream automotive tech. They had to be built like gas vehicles. They had to be designed like gas vehicles, and they had to be practical to produce. I mean, what a lot of folks don't really think about is when you build a car, a lot of what makes the car affordable is its production cost. And that's more than just raw materials, right? When you go to build a vehicle, a lot of what you see in your car isn't for ease of maintenance, it's for ease of assembly, okay? The fewer steps, the more automated, the faster it goes together, the less production cost. And if you ever look at so say something as simple as the door to your car, you look down, there's one connector with one clip. That's not there so that you can remove the door easily later. It's there so that, a suction cup balancer comes down, lines up the door, they zap in, 6 bolts real quick with a screw gun, and then they reach in and they push this one connector in, hit the little latch once, and it goes right down the aisle, right? So this is huge, and electric cars had to be built like that. They had to get away from exotic, expensive materials and go back to steel and aluminum, and they had to have enough capacity to carry, a heavier vehicle that's built like a conventional vehicle. And this is what Tesla is really forging the way on, and everybody else is benefiting from. So, Rich Rebuilds is a guy that's basically starting up an electric garage, and he sort of chronicles how he, rebuilds Teslas from, salvaged wrecks, and takes them apart down to their bare minimum components, and then, assembles a working one. And all the barriers that Tesla throws in his way, it's really interesting how much effort Tesla's making to keep you from servicing your own vehicle or doing repairs. They will absolutely lock out parts. Like they literally won't sell you a door handle if your car isn't affiliated with Tesla, right? So basically, they're saying you're not paying us, you're not getting support. You're not buy like if I go in and buy a door handle for my, Chevrolet Camaro, they don't give a fuck if it's in or out of warranty period or if I've done, double the horsepower or cut it in half. They don't care. They're happy to sell me a door handle. Tesla, no, 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 no. You stay married to Tesla or you don't get nothing after the divorce. And that's how they're looking at it because they're trying to keep all that service in house, right? And of course, it's killing the aftermarket and it's going to be to their own detriment. So anyway, watching Richard Builds, really tear down Teslas to their constituent components, you start to see just how conventionally they're built, which is why they're pretty darn successful. And he gets into a lot of the display and the repair costs. So he's taking these displays down to the PCB level. And so I've gotten to like really kind of watch this, up close through his videos, and he does a great job. But yeah, I mean, you've got the processing power, right? Because you're using conventional system on a chip, something you would use for any other set-top box or any other kind of project. And it's really cool to see like the hardware and how Tesla will charge you $2,800 for a new central display if it dies, but you can get a $300 panel and reuse the PCB, and you don't have to do all that. But yeah, the hardware's there, right? The only thing lacking is the input tech, but it's got Bluetooth. You could use a handheld controller, right? So yeah, I could see this being cool. Like if you're just because let's face it, the big live electric is they quote 80% charge times, 100% full ranges. Fudge the numbers much?
Yeah.
But the reality now with electric, you're going to be sitting waiting for this damn thing to charge for 45 minutes or so just to get back on the road to, it's a reality. So you may as well have something to play. So, if you can sit there and take your little Bluetooth controller and, play Mario Kart or Cuphead or anything else, why not? It's got the display resolution, it's got the processing power, it's got the ability to accept external inputs, why not use it that way? I'm totally for it. Now, obviously that shit, as soon as the vehicle's in motion, that should be locked out. And I'm not one generally ever to say, hey, we need a governmental solution for something. But every day in my commute, it has gotten so painful of all the things that people are intent on doing other than driving. And I realize this is becoming an extended discussion here. I'm going to wrap it up, I promise. But the majority of my commute is spent with people who are busy with all sorts of things other than driving. And like, I don't even want to commute in my car anymore. I avoid it at all costs. I just go on the bikes because my standard move now is when I come up behind a car at a stoplight, I go to the super far left or the super far right. I sit there, light turns green. I look down into the car. They're busy texting. I go right the fuck around them. And they're madder than shit. It's funny. I mean, like literally, people will sit there. If I know this is less of a problem in England. I can't even explain to you how bad it is now. You'll have like a row of like 10 cars at a light. Light turns green. And traditionally, all cars would kind of head off, maybe not as fast as you want, but they trundle away and get on down the road. Now, the lead car sits there till somebody honks because he's busy fucking texting or surfing. Then he trundles off slowly. The guy behind him takes up, and then the third guy's sitting there texting. And it takes, like, you might get 3 cars through the light that 20 cars should get through. And, it gets infuriating, You're going down the road and there's somebody that's, weaving into the oncoming lane, off on the shoulder, and then you go around them, full bore, and they're pissed off at you. I can't tell you how many times I've seen this. But yeah, you let people play damn video games while they're allegedly driving, while they're busy texting. Nah, that's not good. So I'm all for locking that shit out. But yeah, I mean, the technology is there. Why not just kind of do it?
Yeah, I've no real world comparison, but texting and phoning, I think it's probably usually phoning over here, but it is a problem over here too. People seem to do it all the time.
Yeah, but I mean, I'll give credit where credit's due. You guys aren't even on the same level. This shit over here, dude, I'm telling you, it is epidemic. It's so bad. I'm talking down the highway at 80 miles an hour. I'm talking, I can see it too. I look over and like I was rolling into work, right? And there's somebody sitting there next to me just texting, right? And they just start drifting over. And, I get next to them on the bike, right? And, because I mean, I'm there in my lane. And they just literally come halfway into my lane. They're about to hit me, right? So I'm like, all right, let's play along. So I reached up, I held down the horn, I grabbed the brakes, and hit as hard as I could, right? This person literally just stood on their brakes and threw their wheel in a random direction. They're like, all they know is they see a bike next to them, all of a sudden, like, wah! And they're like, what the fuck, because their mind was 100% on texting. They weren't even looking at driving, Later that same day, about 20 miles down the road, somebody else just drifts over in the lane, and they're literally, super fucking close, right? So I'm wearing my big gauntlets, right? And I reach down, I fucking hammer the mirror right off their car. I mean, they're in my fucking lane. Like, literally, I am riding a motorcycle in this lane, and you are 2 inches from contacting me because you're busy texting. Sorry for your mirror, Everybody, like, dude, it's gotten so ridiculous over here. So, yeah, let's not give the fucking idiots one more way to distract themselves from, guiding the vehicle down the road. Just saying.
Yeah, I remember riding through Paris on the back of my brother's motorbike, and I mean, cars and traffic are bad over there anyway. But we're going round the what's it called, Light de Triomphe, and that roundabout there is just fucking mental. And so we're just trying to make our way around on this motorbike, the two of us. And there's this little, I think it was a Renault Clio or something, just moving over right into us. And my brother's beeping. And this car keeps coming and coming. He's going to hit us next minute. Steel toe cap boot right in the passenger side door. Wham!
I'm telling you, when they ignore the beat, like literally, they're sitting like, wah! And they're like, yeah, I just don't care. I'm just going to come right over on you.
Yeah.
You take that gauntlet, you reach over, and you take off a mirror or hit a window. It gets their attention. They suddenly, oh, okay, this guy's serious. I'm not just going to run him over.
Sorry.
Yeah. But,
okay.
Not to belabor the fucking point, but I got to tell you, man, it to me, it's just such a dissonance in reality of like you're sitting behind a car. The light turns green. They're just fucking text. They're not even giving a shit. So you just off down the road, right? Then if they catch up to you or they like end up at the next light, they are just mad at you, like freakishly mad. Like, yeah, you just went around me. It's like, you know how this happened, right? I mean, there's no concept of I'm doing the wrong thing here. None.
Yeah.
None.
Well, somebody did the wrong thing here, but we still don't know who it is. This story has progressed a little from last month. I presume it's still going on. We remember At Games were being sued, and so what At Games did is went and bought some of the rights to Ms. Pac-Man from the guys who invented the game. It's all very unclear, but At Games were given permission to do some Ms. Pac-Man games. They did a terrible arcade one they didn't have permission for. They got sued, and now they bought up some of the rights, presumably just so it never gets out of court. I don't know. That one is just going to keep rolling and rolling, I think. Ridiculous.
Yeah, that's I mean, At Games has been around for more than a minute, right? They're not new to this. I honestly am just, I don't get it because they're not new. Again, they have successful relationships with multiple vendors, right? Or rights owners,
Mm-hmm.
They have produced mainstream products that are present in major retail stores and online. They did all the flashbacks. They did those 2 new arcade machines. They're not like some fly-by-night, never heard of them company. I mean, look, I'm no lawyer. I don't know. Obviously, Namco's suing them, but Namco's super litigious. Maybe they did have some foundation of agreement, and they, let's say it said running on this system, and they used the same chipset and the same thing in the arcade game, and it's just the physical box is different, but it's the same thing as the flashback. Who knows? I mean, I'm gonna kind of wait to see how this settles out, because I'm not so sure it's as sinister as it seems.
Yeah. Who knows? One here that surprised me, sent in by me. Nintendo Switch Lite users affected by the Joy-Con drift joined the class action lawsuit. So I would have thought a company like Nintendo that had this Joy-Con drift that was raised pretty quickly after the Switch launched, affected a lot of people, not everybody, but it affected a lot of people. Also happens on the newly released Switch Lite. So I'm guessing they had a bunch of hardware already made. I'm guessing the insides are probably very similar, although, they have removed certain functionality from the Switch Lite. They're not going to redesign a whole Joy-Con mechanism for it. So the problem's carried over. Once they get rid of the bad batch and fix it, then, newly bought devices presumably won't have it. But it is certainly in the early Switch Lites as well.
Yeah, it's funny about that. The drift is nothing new. I mean, I've experienced it, with the pads and the pointers on laptops. I mean, it's annoying, but you're sitting there and the mouse just slowly starts going, right? It's happened with other video game consoles. I think in the past it was just one of those things that, okay, yeah, that's kind of how not perfect hardware works. And now it's a lawsuit. I don't know, man. I don't think that's brilliant, but it's what's being done.
Yeah. Sticking with...
So I've got one here that I was trying to submit, and it kept getting bounced. And it's not like a huge thing. It's just something I thought was pretty cool. And you can tell that it's going someplace. I think if people keep contributing, it keeps getting built out. It's not a huge website now, but it's definitely cool. And it's called starringthecomputer.com. And it's a fellow, James Carter, runs it. And he has an email, james@starringthecomputer.com. And he's kind of open to submissions and all. And what it is you can sort by movies, TV, or computers to find computers that were used in movies or TV. So it's kind of cool because, like, let's say your favorite computer is the, Alistair 1002, right? You can go to computers and you can look up, Alistair, 2002, and it'll show you everything it's listed in. So, like, I'm here looking. I mean, obviously stuff like the Apple IIs and damn near everything ever made. But I can go in here to, I'll pick a good example, the Atari 800, okay? And it lists all the movies it was used in, and then you click on it, and it shows you the screen cap from the movie. It shows you sort of the importance, the realism. Like let's say, for example, it was showing an actual game or graphics that the thing did. It'll have a very high realism. Let's say that they're playing like one of the computers, which was a 8-bit, 40-column text-only computer made for like secretarial work. It showed it here, and it was playing live video, like video conferencing. So it's like 1 star for realism, But it's a neat website. I've been, kind of playing around on it, and I made a submission. We'll see if it gets incorporated. I was watching The Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, which is kind of funny, and there was a Tandy 1110 HD in it, and it was connected to the internet and doing internet things on green screen. It was kind of funny. So I put the screen caps and sent it in, so we'll see. But, yeah, cool website.
Yeah. It didn't make it through to news. I will investigate that further. May do it tonight when we finish, actually. One here, back to Nintendo controllers. It's a rare prototype of the N64 controller. All the layouts there, everything's pretty much the same. The Joy-Con looks slightly different. I don't know if they were any more reliable, any less floppy, but there's a picture on this link, which will be in the show notes, of course, that has the two side by side, and you can see that it's very similar. Really, just the Joy-Con, I think, that's different on it. Wonder if anybody's got one in the wild.
So there's one that we just have to slow down and savor here for a minute. Oh my God, the Atari VCS is at it again. Mike,
Yeah.
I have to say, I don't throw around words like chameleon-esque lightly, because the chameleon was certainly its own thing that we saw, from beginning to dramatic end, and helped facilitate both with an aggression. So, yeah, it'll always be a special moment in time, the rise and fall of the Coleco Chameleon and the idiot captain at the helm. This is taking on chameleon-esque proportions. So, amongst the many things that happened, the hardware guy, we love them, don't we, Mike?
Which one? There's so many.
I know. It's an abundant bunch, isn't it? So the hardware guy basically says, yeah, you know what? I've been off the project for a while. They haven't paid me in a year or something. And yeah, I'm done, right? So Atari just kind of stayed silent, right? So I guess they had collected some money and were supposed to be delivering the product, and now there's nobody on it, It's a familiar trope in the cardboard console world. So Atari has broken radio silence, right? It says here, hello, backers, fans, and followers. Now, we all remember the breaking radio silence posts that were made by none other than the famous MK. And there were some good ones. I mean, where he surfaced, to explain something. And Mike, what were some of the famous lines? Simple as that, boil this down. What were some of the other goodies?
I can't remember off the top of my head. Now I'm just scrolling down through this news story. Yeah, simple as that. We're 90% done, was it? Or 70% done, something like that? Or, yeah.
Blow the nerds away. I mean, man, look, there was some good damn, at any time, like, I read something like, simple as that, I was like, oh, shit, it's getting real. It's not as simple as that. So I personally, I love those days. It was so fun in hindsight. So let's see what they have to say here. Hello, backers, fans, and followers. Ready for some exciting Atari VCS news? You bet we are, because the last thing we heard, your hardware guy left. After a bit more radio silence than we planned, we're boiling this down. We're now ready to talk about something you've all been waiting to hear a lot more about, games. It's not just a few games either. We're talking about thousands of games ready for you to play at the launch of the Atari VCS. As you were reading this, we have dropped a press release announcing our exclusive partnership with AntStream Arcade to deliver the entire Atari retro back catalog to the Atari VCS, along with thousands of other fully licensed classic games available on the AntStream service. Okay, so you're gonna be able to play streaming retro games, which you could do on a $39 Raspberry Pi. You could do on anything, really. Okay, but this is now a console that costs as much as a PS4 or an Xbox One X. So along with beloved Atari classics like Asteroid Centipede, yes, we all know them. We've known them for 40 years, et cetera, et cetera. You can play games like Bad News, Dragon Ninja, Double Dragon, Jumpman, Metal Slug. Okay, great. Once again, please complete your backer kit survey as soon as possible. There are still more than 300 backers who need to do this. Check your spam filter, yada, yada, yada.
Because it will come through as spam.
Yeah. The survey and backer profile is how you ensure you will get the right product sent to the right place at the right time. You think anything's ever going to get delivered?
We went around this last month, and I thought they will bring.
This is new updates.
Yeah. It's looking worse by the minute. I'll be honest. I thought there would be something that would be a shadow of its alleged self, but it's looking less likely. I mean, they're not paying people. They made a ton of money on Kickstarter, and literally have nothing to show for it other than 3D renders. You know,
A familiar trope in the cardboard console business.
Well, yes, and another one is, you know, they're touting developers that they're working with and telling you what games are going to come to it. The thing that doesn't exist yet. So it's all mirroring what we've seen before, and the more time goes on with shit coming out like this, the less and less likely it seems it will come out. I should just say this was sent in by quite a few people. Ken Carlson, big shout out to Ken. Dave Lanke, Sean Stevenson, Cal Klitsky, and I think maybe one or two others that I can't just see quickly scrolling through. So, I mean, people are all over the story. And, I mean, Atari, although they're not really Atari, must be aware of it, must be aware of the shit that is going around the internet. And they just seem oblivious. You know, they sat on a pot of money and putting out 3D renders and lists of games that are going to come.
Well, you remember the whole controlling the narrative, shutting down dissension, shutting down factual comments, trying to, we're looking to have that video taken down,
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what? Hey, if they ship product and this thing shows up, I think at best, again, it'll be a super cheap, hastily developed link on a generic desktop to whatever little streaming service they did. It's not going to be a developed ecosystem. It's not going to be worth 300. It's not even going to be worth 39. So we're going to continue to watch the train wreck, but I don't think I'll be buying a ticket and getting in the car.
No, I don't think so either. But interestingly, Dave Lanke also sent one in related to this. The fucking clicked on the wrong one now. Was it Dave Lanke? I'm scrolling down for it now. Sean Stevenson, sent it. Atari VCS, in brackets, former architect, is back with a Kickstarter project. And this one does actually look pretty cool. It's not quite on the same level as the game board that we saw from Jerry Ellsworth and her team, with the VR kind of game board. But this is something similar, a board game tablet where you've got pieces moving around kind of digitally rather than using a physical board. So it seems to be a theme that board games are going to evolve in the next couple of years at least. And Atari's former architect is on Kickstarter now with one. I wonder if we can... Is there a link to the Kickstarter? Let's see how it's progressing. So, yes, it's funded. So the target was £78,020. It's achieved £122,344. So, 150%-ish funded, 577 backers, and still 11 days to go. So this thing is going to happen. It is called The Last Game Board. So, he is a real engineer. He can produce products if you pay him to do it. So it's interesting the way that board game world is kind of evolving, really. I guess it kind of had to go sort of digital at some point, didn't it?
Oh, yeah. Long overdue.
Yeah. So
one here from Dave Lanke called The Split Screen Man. It's a story about Billy Mitchell. It's a very long story. So we're going to leave the link in our show notes. Suffice it to say, it's basically all kinds of people point the finger at Billy Mitchell. Bill Mitchell denies all wrongdoing, and it goes from there. It's a guy that I guess talked to Billy, and it's a long story. It's going to take 2 hours to read. So we'll let you go do that on your own if you're really, really curious about Billy Mitchell.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I know the one you've just
George
seen.
Watts here giving us a chuckle. He says you should totally buy this and drive it over Kennedy's trailer. Let's see what he's thinking we should buy. It's a Megabot. A few dings and dents from engaging in close quarters, nation-on-nation combat. And it's a treaded lower with a torso and a cage that stands up with two arms. One has a giant chainsaw on it, and the other one a gripper. And it's shown here holding a car that is crushed up. Basically, yeah, it's kind of a killbot, and they're asking $170,000 for it. 193 bids, and it went up to $170,000. So megabots, that's the thing. 15 tons, two-story, gasoline-powered car smashing piloted gigantic battle robot from the world famous USA versus Japan giant robot duel. Does what it says on the tin. I hope whoever won got the $1,000 deposit in and has the rest of the money, so we get to see this unleashed on the world. So
something else that is going to be unleashed on the world is some rumoured remakes of House of the Dead 1 and 2. They are now officially confirmed. Sega's classic light gun arcade shooters, House of the Dead 1 and 2, are officially getting a remake treatment, although it doesn't look like they'll be releasing for a while. I'm just trying to see if there's any indication of timeline. I don't see one. But there is an agreement signed, and Sega have given the go-ahead, so you will see a remake. I would presume it would be... It's not going to be arcade. It must be PC, maybe Steam, something like that. Presumably it's going to be light gun based. How would they do that?
Well, I got one here submitted by Glenn Minette. New artwork for Stern Star Wars pen. So Stern announces new Star Wars comic art pinball machines. So they're doing some alternative artwork, alternate for special versions. That's kind of cool. I tell you what I really want to see more than ever is new software. I know I've said this for probably 10 years. I've never gotten a real response, of any kind of interest from anybody in the pinball world I've talked to. But when I talk to pinball owners, like I literally walk around, talking to other pinball owners, pinball players. All right, let's say you spent $6,000 on a pinball, and 3 years later you've played it, you still enjoy it, but would you pay $200, $300 for an SD card that or a USB that you stick in, and it updates it with new missions, new play modes, new voice calls? I would. Like, I've had Family Guy since 2007. Love it. If I could spend, click on the Stern website, spend $300, and have, a USB card show up, stick it in there, update it from, 3.12 to 4.1, and have, 6 new levels and new game modes and new features. Yeah, I do that, man. So I know they're trying to get new games out the door and all, but I don't know. I think there's a market, but not happening. So, okay, some extra artwork, cool, nice, great, all right. With pinball machines getting where they are, an entry price of $6,000 and a premium price of $8,000 on average. That's a lot of investment for something that's not, going to see any upgrades. So I think the time for pinball upgrades is here. You know what? I don't have the software chops nor the time to head something like this up. If one of our listeners, is out there as a developer, hey, look into the business. If you stand up, a studio, maybe, yourself, and you hire another software developer, and you start doing expansion modules for these games. I mean, I know licensing, all that. I mean, you can build an expansion module and sell it. But obviously, like, let's say you're going to do something for Family Guy. You couldn't have new voice assets, right? But you could add new levels probably, or even just go to Stern and say, hey, look, we'll do this, and the licensing fee to you is this. I don't know. I'm not a lawyer, but I know there's demand, and I know that nobody's meeting it. So it'd be nice to see.
And it kind of makes sense as well. I think the market is getting to a point where it's probably driving stuff like this now. I mean, you're not going to go out and spend $8,000 on a new game, but you'd spend, a few hundred on a mod for it, new software for it. And it won't give you a new game, but it'll give you an improved experience. And I think people are more willing to drop, a few $100 than another $8,000.
Oh yeah, I mean, and it really extends the value of what you have. I just see it as an obvious move, but we'll see.
Yeah. One here, sent in by me, but I heard it mentioned on the Tenpence Arcade podcast. Street Fighter 2 is a big fat cheat, apparently. So there is a YouTube video. The link will be in the show notes, and you can watch the Street Fighter 2 game. It's played in one player, and the player is registering hits on the CPU opponents, but their damage meter is not moving at all. So not every hit that you made on them was registered, yet all of their hits are. And you can see in the video, they'll slow it down for you and show you the hits that were misses and the misses that were hits. So it was cheating all along. So you might be a better Street Fighter 2 player than you gave yourself credit for.
So got one here submitted by UK Mike James. John Kirby, the ex-Nintendo lawyer, passes away at 79 years old. John Kirby, the ex-Nintendo lawyer, the Kirby character was named after, has died at 79. According to an obituary published in the New York Times, Kirby passed away due to complications from blood cancer. During his time at Nintendo, he defended the company during trademark and copyright suit brought by Universal City Studios over Donkey Kong. The case was whether about Donkey Kong violated King Kong. Of course, Nintendo won. Shigeru Miyamoto named the Kirby character in his honor, according to the Times obituary. So that's pretty cool. Lawyers, love-hate relationship, let's say, with lawyers, But, I'm sure this guy did a lot of work that benefited a lot of gamers, preserving the history of Donkey Kong and the ability for them to make games. So that's good.
Yeah, one here sent in via the, I think the email link on the forums from Chris McElroy. And it is a Kickstarter for 3D Tic-Tac-Toe. So he said, "Hi, I'm Chris. I just started a Kickstarter for a 3D Tic-Tac-Toe board, just like a bunch of old retro games, but on a totally new physical platform. And I'm just on the Kickstarter now. It's only 5 hours left to go, and it doesn't look like it's going to get funded. You can check the link in the show notes. It does look a pretty cool device, actually. It's had a target just short of £50,000, and it's reached just under 13,000. So with 5 hours to go, it sadly doesn't look like it's going to get funded. But a neat idea. I don't know. Maybe you can come back and make it more cheaply, because there's clearly a lot of interest in it. People are willing to pay some money for it. Maybe not quite as much as Chris was hoping, sadly. But looks a neat device nonetheless.
Yeah, it's illegitimate products aside, doing a legitimate project on Kickstarter and all, and knowing that it works, the idea is sound, and not seeing it get funded, it's got to suck, And I got a lot of respect for people that put it out there and try. Got a little quick one here from Mike James. A survey says 73% of Americans play video games. And the survey finds a notable increase in both engagement and spending among the younger audience. Well, good. I mean, we had a period of time when, the video game sort of fad mania was at its peak in the early 80s. And video games were just everywhere. I mean, you walked into a convenience store, there were 4 arcade cabinets right there. I wish that was still the case. All sorts of neat things have come and gone in the video game world. So, to see more Americans and more people, returning to video games is good. I'm kind of excited about what's next. I'm really anticipating a new PlayStation and, probably the new Xbox. I'm anticipating maybe another game from Nintendo one day for the Switch. That would be nice. So far, not a lot of titles that I give a crap about.
Yeah, I've been toying with the idea of maybe a Switch, in the new house, because Paula's youngest daughter Lucy is living with us at the moment, and she has been playing on the Wii for the last couple of days that she's been living here. So I was toying with the idea of maybe a Wii U, get the newer version of Mario Kart, or possibly a Switch, but I don't know. We'll see when we're in the new place and see how much it might get used. But we've been playing a couple of rounds of Mario Kart last couple of days here and there. So, yeah, as for other stuff, PlayStation, not really that interested personally. One here that I'm also not interested in from Sean Stevenson. It is a Sonic protein shake. As you might know, protein shakes are common drinks for those folks working out, and so to promote the upcoming video game Mario and Sonic at the Olympics 2020, they have got a protein shake, and the Sonic the Hedgehog Twitter account shared a horrifying recipe and photo. They also list the ingredients, and they are 5 hot dogs, 1 can of chili, 2 scoops of protein powder, 1 cup of shredded cheese, and 5 ice cubes. You whiz that up into a drink, and it probably tastes absolutely disgusting. But, yes. Not so much Sonic themed. They're kind of jumping on the back of something there, I think. But I won't be trying the Sonic protein shake anytime soon.
Yeah, not really a thing. Got one here from Sean Stevenson also. It says, another one of those lists for you. Not too bad, but I'm no NES expert. And it's a site, Gamer Rant, and it's the 10, let's see, where are we at? 10 rarest NES games ever and the story behind them. And I'll just kind of run through them here. TMNT Tournament Fighters, which is basically Nintendo Street Fighter with the Turtles instead. Snow Brothers. I'm pretty certain I had this game at one point. I very much am sure I had this game at one point, but not anymore. It doesn't matter. Another rare one I had contact with was Tengen Tetris. Mm-hmm. And it turns out it's pretty rare these days, but it was a horrible version of Tetris. It was very difficult they did this sort of noodly effect that it looked like a bowl of pasta, not Tetris pieces. Very unpleasant to play, but it's rare now. Bonk's Adventure, Panic Restaurant. Can't say I've ever heard of that one.
No.
Bubble Bobble Part 2. Yeah, I've seen those go for a couple $100, but they're not impossible to find. Little Samson, obviously, kind of hard to find. Cheetahman 2. Of course, I've got my copies of Cheetahman from the expo. Pretty darn cool. Bondi Family Fitness. And let's see down here, there is Nintendo World Championship. Kind of a cool thing. And then, of course, the Nintendo Campus Challenge. Growing out of its own cartridges, as it were. So, I remember that one went on eBay for $20,000. So, I will pay for rare hardware. And I certainly spent some money on it over the years. But I just can't have any motivation to buy rare software. I mean, if the ROM's out there, even then, there's no game that's worth $20,000 to play. It's just ROMs. They could die at any second, and they're unrepairable. Nah, don't feel any motivation at all to have rare software. You know what? Maybe our listeners could send in some feedback to the news. Just send your take to news@retrogamingroundup.com, and I'd like to hear what you think. Do you like to collect rare software? Is there any merit in it? Is it crazy? Tell us.
Yeah, one here. Sent in, I think, by Sean Stevenson. Yes, he was a busy boy this month. He comes and goes, does Sean?
Thank you, Sean. We appreciate the submissions.
We certainly do. Radio 3 is launching a new weekly program dedicated to video game soundtracks, running from Saturday, the 26th of October. The hour-long show will be presented by composer Jessica Curry, who won a BAFTA for her work with the UK studio The Chinese Room, and created and presented Classic FM's video game music program, High Score. So I will go back. These will, I presume, be on iPlayer. You can maybe listen to them in your country. I don't know, but you will be able to obtain them from somewhere. And they've done similar things in the past. I think it was Radio 4, perhaps, that did one with a 3-episode one. The first one was featuring Charlie Brooker, and a couple more episodes after that. I did listen to that one, so I'll see if I can find this and check this one out.
Huh. Got a cool one here submitted by you, Mike. And it's Tales from Inside Sega's AM2 Top Secret Studio. And it's, just a nice little story from Eurogamer about the building that, so much Sega stuff was developed in. The building is being torn down and replaced. Sega has already moved to their new headquarters. And they talk here a bit about how some of the things that were done there, like the composition of Magical Sound Shower, Passing Breeze, and Splash Wave, of course, from Outrun. Let's see here. Goes into some of their idea of starting to archive things and preserve it so that they would have a record of it. And they were, as they were packing, it says here, amidst the chaos of the move, Japanese name guy kept unearthing new surprises, cassette tapes that captured live recordings of the SST bands, Sega's own in-house group, ultra rare Naomi cartridges, floppy disks that contained backups for the SG-1000 games. He even rediscovered the handwritten score to the original Space Harrier. That is really cool. I mean, oh my gosh. That's such a piece of history. So it's a long article. It's got quite a few photos, some links to some videos. This will keep you busy for a little while, and it really is cool. So awesome find there.
Yeah. One here from me. I did mention it earlier, but it is a reminder about AD's Christmas-themed retro video game night down in Camborne. Tickets are available from the link in the show notes, and it is on November the 29th. So if you can get down there, do so. One here from the other side of the world, from Glenn Minette. And he says, "G'day, guys. I know some of you guys are not fans of the Switch, but I am. Coming as a Switch exclusive is a new Bubble Bobble game. Okay, but the exciting news to this is that they are including the original Taito arcade Bubble Bobble game too. It's an article on NintendoLife.com. Great news, Bubble Bobble fans. Remember when we said a brand new Switch exclusive game called Bubble Bobble for Friends was on the way? Well, it turns out we're getting a little more than we bargained for. So yes, you will get the original game bundled in with it. I don't know if it's unlockable, whether you just get it, but it will be included. So, a decent game.
Let's see. Okay, here we go. One here from Peter Gibbs. Google stating they can using AI. I guess Google stating they can use an AI. Not really sure. To predict user input and reduce latency for Stadia. So, okay. This sounds similar to recent approaches to emulation to reduce input lag on LCDs. It now seems somewhat feasible. I'm not sure there'll be anything on it that I want to play, though. Yeah, that's kind of it. This Google Stadia, it's the exact opposite direction of where I want to go. I want to still buy physical copies of games that I can... Like, if I had a PlayStation 4 20 years from now, I could take out the physical copy of the game, run it, and still play it without the updates or whatnot. And I still want to be able to do that. I do not want a online-only service. No interest, and no interest in the Google Stadia.
See, the thing with this, I don't know. I'm not...
Negative latency, I don't care.
I'm not an AI engineer, obviously. But the way they're trying to get around it is through predicting your button presses. But if you don't press that button, then that button press that you did actually do is still going to get through the system and get back to you, in video and as a game experience. So I don't know. If you don't press what they're expecting you to, then you're still going to get that lag if they can't deliver it to you at the right speed. So I don't know. I think it's a lot of waffle, that one, personally. I did have a quick read through it, but it struck me as waffle. One that isn't waffle is an official fan-made 7th guest sequel, The 13th Doll, finally ready for release this Halloween, which will be any day now. The 13th Doll developer Attic Door Productions officially licensed follow-up to cult classic spooky CD-ROM adventure The 7th Guest is, after a rather long delay, finally ready for release and will be making its way to PC this Halloween. I did have a quick look at some video from this. And if you remember, the 7th Guest had like the skeletal hand that was your icon. This one has the same. Looks very similar. So they've taken inspiration from the first one, which I didn't play all the way through. I have got it. And like Discworld Noir is on the to-do list, but I would check this one out as well, because I did like the game. I did enjoy it. And I do like a good point and click.
Got one here from Sean Stevenson again. Russia's Retro Lenin Museum still runs on decades-old Apple II computers. Now, that's funny. The Russians did some native computer development, but almost everything they had was stolen from U.S. Tech and copied, and then claimed to be an original development of the Communist Empire. But it's kind of cool. They are some, inventive people in keeping things running. And I find it curious they actually still have a museum to Lenin. That's also kind of interesting.
Yeah. There's some interesting details in this as well. I did read right through this one. So Steve Jobs went over there and tried to sell Apple IIs to the Russians, but they weren't having any of it. But they did eventually get something extremely similar through a dodgy backdoor. And there is some information about that in this article. And they explain why they just didn't update it, why they didn't get rid of the Apple IIs and why they still use them. They do what they want, they still work, and they don't want to change them. So it is a really good read, that one.
Oh, yeah, why would they?
Let's have a look. What's this one? Band of Brothers, the TV show. Not game related, but a great TV show, HBO show.
Incredible TV show.
Yes, and they did not so much a follow-up, but a parallel sequence series, I guess, which was called The Pacific, which was equally as good as Band of Brothers. And there's now going to be another follow-up series called The Masters of Air. And
I am so anticipating this, Mike.
And the headline says...
no idea how much I'm looking forward to this.
No, the headline says, coming only to another streaming service you don't have, but we'll be able to watch it somehow. But yeah,
we're going to watch it, don't you
It does
worry.
look really good. Have you got any other info on it? Have you done any background on it?
No, there's a couple things I'm, just to veer off a little bit here and talk about it. There's a couple things that I'm anticipating and dreading. Band of Brothers, Masters of Air. I mean, my God, that's going to be amazing. The job they did with Band of Brothers and the job that they did with the Pacific was just unbelievable, And there was none of this, mealy mouth, half apology. Oh, we're so sorry we ended the war that somebody else started. When you start a fight, you don't get to dictate the ending, But it was just a wonderful series that really told the story, and that's its job, right? So Masters of Air is basically about the air campaign and what it took to, how much risk there was, how much loss there was. I mean, it was tremendous losses that, then were understood to be part of fighting a war like that. And today, with every story, coming back every night about how we were getting slaughtered or knocked out of the air or whatever, you would, the media would turn right around and well, damn near do the best to bolster, the enemy's propaganda. But it was a different era then. And it's going to be interesting to see sort of, the visual depiction of what these guys dealt with, during the war. So I'm totally up for this. I'm totally stoked. Can't wait to see it. I have a feeling they're going to do the same amazing job they did with the Pacific and Band of Brothers. So, kind of looking forward in a similar fashion to a movie about the Battle of Midway. And, critically important battle that turned the tide in the Pacific and took us from a defeat to a victory posture. And, it looks like they did a good balance of CGI with practical effects. So I'm looking forward to that tremendously. The new Terminator movie, not so much. I'm going to go see it, but I'm not really thinking it's going to be a great thing. Just for a lot of practical reasons, So, I don't know. I'll see it. I'll report back. But I'm not even cautiously optimistic. I am somewhat dreadful about it. So we'll see.
I don't know if we mentioned it last month or if it was out at the time. But it's been about a month, I guess. The second It, part 2 of It, I did go to the theatre and watch that with a couple of the kids, and I liked it. It was quite long, but I don't think it...
I liked it.
I liked it. It was quite long, but it didn't feel it. I think it moved along pretty well. A few jump scares in there that made the kids jump, but I thought it was a decent film.
I heard it stank, and I don't know how much of that was expectations, from the first one. I don't know. But it was something I've not seen yet. I can't say it's really on my radar, but I may watch it at some point. So
yeah, I spoke to a couple of people who'd seen it and didn't like it, and they were like, "So at the end, there's just like this big spider," and I'm like, "Well, yeah, but I knew that going in. I've read the book, I've seen the '90s show with was it Tim Curry, wasn't it?
Tim Curry, which that was frightening enough.
Yeah. So I knew what was coming. I knew the story. I'm not disappointed by the story, but I thought it did a decent job. One here again from the busy Sean Stevenson. Oh, does this mean he's not busy? Does he send more when he's not busy? I don't know.
He's laid off again.
Yeah, maybe.
I tell you what, that industry, man. Oh, Sean is a guy I often cite as a case study, when I talk about the video games industry of, why isn't it further along? Why don't they have more games coming out for consoles? And, because it's chaos. I mean, you look at some of the stories Sean has told over the years of how they, treat studios and how they treat studio employees. How do you ever expect to build any kind of core, army of developers that churn out quality products if they're constantly perpetually, flip-flopping, losing employment, whatever? You're never going to get it, So I think it's time for the industry to grow up a bit and manage their resources better. But
yeah, one here, as I said, from Sean. Internet Archive adds 2,500 more MS-DOS games.
Yeah, this is Jason Scott's site. He's been on the show. I know him. Great guy. He runs textfiles.com. And he is a huge archiver, a huge custodian of so many of these things. Yeah. Right now there's so many great DOS packages out there. Like when I was looking for a large collection of games for the 1000HX, I was hot rodding for the Tandy assembly. What I do? I download, 3,000, DOS game package, 10,000, and then break them out, dump them into a folder, and you got more games than you ever need there. And if there's one specific one you're looking for that wasn't in the archive, yeah, but the more large archives and the more things, the better. The abandonware idea, I think, is valid. I mean, many of these companies don't exist anymore. It's not like they're going to re-release any of these games. It was an era that's passed, So I'm glad to see somebody out there, getting these things out there so that people can experience them.
Yeah. And like you say, there were, as a library, it's more games than you'll ever need, but there were some really great DOS games. Ugh. Excuse me. Speaking of games, I made a note here, Sega Airline, and my note was Ask Scott. It's not a game I've heard of before, and it uses the classic sit-down Sega cab, like Rally Championship, touring cars, Outrun, that kind of cab. But it's an airline-based game and has flight controls. But it's not one I've ever heard of before. Have you heard of it, seen it, played it?
I'm looking at it right now. Yeah, there's a couple of games that, and this is also the basis for the Ferrari 355 Challenge. So I actually have the single screen version of Airline Pilot. It's another iteration of it called Landing High Japan, where you basically fly airliners in and out of the major airports of Japan. And it's a cool game. It really is. The Airline Pilots, it uses a similar one to the 355. Basically, it's the 3 screens in one, although there is a single screen version. They're not that common. It's something you're not going to typically see in the U.S. There are some that made it over here, but not in mass numbers at all. It's pretty cool. I mean, the graphics are as good as they need to be. You can have a great time doing it. It's cool. Why not? Is there anything you want to know about it, or
no? It's just I wondered if you played it. Is it the same game as the? Because I know you've talked about the Land in Japan one that you put in the airport. Yeah. Is it the same game or different?
It's different, completely different. But it's the same idea. Yeah. Like if you play one, it's not all that dissimilar. So,
yeah.
Well, the folks, let's see who submitted this first. Give them credit. Dave Lanky. Some news on Analog's Game Boy remake. So Analog has remade some really cool consoles. They did the Nintendo NT, and now they've got this Game Boy. It's basically, a larger, brighter, crisper, quality screen. 30 years ago was when the Game Boy was released. And this is a much more compact, much more high resolution, very high quality system. They're calling it the Analog Pocket, right? And let's see here. Yeah, you'll find no digital downloads, no emulations. I'm looking for what they're gonna charge us the USB-C. There's a number of cartridge adapters available. A lot of doesn't have the price that they're going to ask for it. It's not going to be cheap because this is analog, but you can be sure you're buying a quality product. You're not buying some little $30 it'll last a couple plays and then fall apart or not really have you coming back. This is something that you're going to be able to haul around and utilize. It's no doubt a good product. I'm going to see if I can find out what they're selling this thing for.
$200. Apparently, Sean sent it in a little lower down, and he's got the price at $200.
Yeah, that sounds about right for an analog thing. And I think there's a market for that because there's so many people that want a quality console like that. And I'll give credit to Hyperkin. They've come a long way. A lot of their stuff was, just kind of junky, but it worked, And I've always said, man, if they would just charge $60 instead of $40, and you could make this thing so much better, right? And they've gotten a little better over the years. Some of the at-game stuff, pretty darn good, but still an impulse purchase, kind of long-term disposable thing. This is something that you're going to hang on to. It's a quality built. It's as if it came from a first-party mainstream vendor like Nintendo, and the price is according. And I think that's fine. I mean, this is not crap. This is worth it. So I'm glad to see them expanding out and making yet another retro console.
Yeah, and if you're listening to this rather than looking at this, it's the same sort of form factor as the Game Boy, but it does have 2 shoulder buttons on the back. one each side. It's got the D-pad on the front. It's got 4 face buttons, and it's got 3 other buttons down in the bottom right corner, which I'm guessing are, home and menu and that kind of thing, perhaps. So you've got 4 gameplay buttons and shoulders added to the Game Boy factor. But it looks nice and sleek and quite slim. Should be good.
I think so. Got one here from Sean Stevenson. Air Force retires 8-inch floppies. Yeah, they did. I know a little bit about this. It's funny, we were talking about the Lennon Museum. Sometimes tech works. And if it works and it has a super low failure rate, why not use it? So some of the old PDP stuff and all, from the 60s and even the early 70s, the stuff ran forever. It was bulletproof. It's easily repairable, right? So if you want a system that is super high availability, something that isn't going to be going down, isn't going to have software updates, there's no place for malware to hide, and that's a huge thing, right? Like, Mike, did you ever hear about the time the U.S. wrecked the Iranian nuclear program?
Yes.
Yeah.
What was the virus called?
So what we did is we wrote a piece of malware that its entire goal was to seek out the centrifuges and basically increase the RPMs so it became unstable, produced a defective product, and damaged the centrifuges while appearing to function entirely normal. Because I don't know about you, Mike, but I can't tell the difference between 30,000 and 34,000 RPM. I mean, it was brilliant. So what they did is they made this malware, they put it on SD cards and, USB keys and all, and they just scattered it around the town where people worked. And sure enough, some of these people brought the keys in, stuck the USB drive in to the computer, and we infected it, and we wrecked their system. So, that can't happen if you've got a PDP-11. There's no place for the malware to hide, and no one that could really develop it. So it's a pretty damn solid system. So I worked on a similar system, in terms of like antiquity that worked. We had one in the Army called the PADS, Position Azimuth Determining System. And basically it's an inertial navigation unit. You initialize it. So the gyros are spun up, it's stable. You hang a plumb bob off of the arm, you mark the location. After that, everywhere you move it, it figures out where you've moved to. It needs no external signals. It needs nothing other than just, what's internal to it. And it was primitive. I mean, when I was working on it, this was, early 90s, and it was from the late 60s, and it still had core row memory. It still had, no, because when it was developed, there was no, microprocessor. So it was a full processor board that had every individual function of a processor, I/O cards, all that. And what you would do is you would load up either into the core row memory. You would load up either the test program to do the diagnostics or the mission operational program. And they were stored on Mylar tape. And they had a Mylar tape reader that would play back the software. And we're talking just bytes of software on these big Mylar reels. But you know what? The stuff worked. And so why change it? And that stuff was in use forever. So yeah, the Air Force had 8-inch floppies. And what's funny is they replaced it, as I understand it, with a floppy emulator. So they're still using the system that was tied to the 8-inch floppy. It's just a floppy emulator, So again, if you want to make sure that missile silo is up and running, why not use it, right?
One here, which I forwarded on to email as a reminder. Scott, way back when you did an arcade walkthrough, and we had
about a year ago. Less than a year ago. It was a little over half a year ago.
It was this year, yeah. And we've had a new comment on it. How the hell did you get that Ferrari F355 down there? Awesome collection, by the way. So I don't know if you want to go in and add a comment on the logistics of it. But...
explanation. Yes, and Mike, you've played it. You've driven it.
Yeah.
In the basement arcade, along with a full skee ball machine and other things. I have a Ferrari 355 Challenge, the full 3-screen version. Basically, I disassembled it down to its core components, right? Literally stripped it down like to what it was assembled from. And then I restored each part, took that part downstairs, and then reassembled it downstairs. So that's how that happened.
Another arcade one here, but this one is from Daria. I write to you on behalf of the Museum of Soviet Arcade Machines, located in Moscow and St. Petersburg, Russia. The museum represents the unique collection of Soviet arcade games which were produced in the USSR from the 1970s till the 1990s. We find, restore, and maintain the arcade games which could have been disappeared. We've just come across your website and thought it would probably be interesting for you to feature our museum as a topic. And indeed it is, and here we are doing that thing.
You know what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to compose a message here, and I'm going to reply. This is something that we've mentioned on this show several times because it's so damn cool, seeing the Soviet interpretation of video games, and I think it's really cool. I mean, I it's something I've not seen, in person, but we all grew up seeing, the U.S., the U.K., the German games, whatever. We never saw the Soviet. We didn't even know the Russians had video games until much, much later. We all know about the Dendy, the copy of the Nintendo and all that. But this is sort of new. So I think it's amazing. I'm glad to see that they contacted us, and I'm doing a reply to them right now, Mike, while you read the next one, and I'm going to ask them to come on the show.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's great that they are actually finding them and restoring them. I guess the impression that we would be given of Russia would be that, the games wouldn't work, a bit like the arcades in North Korea. The games are there, they don't work. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Sometimes bits are hanging off, but they're preserving these things and keeping them running. So that's a refreshing sight to see. So the next one is, it's a video, so we can't play it here. Is it a Kickstarter? Looks like a Kickstarter. An itchy, tasty history of Resident Evil. It's a book. It's £32 plus shipping. I'm trying to see if it's crowdfunded. Yes, it must be, but there's no link to the crowdfunding. There's just, I guess there's various packages you can buy and have it shipped to you. Oh, it is funded. What's it on? Unbound.com. I've not heard of Unbound. It's another crowdfunding platform. It's 41% funded, but it doesn't tell us how long is left to go. Just trying to flick through here. So you can get a book in hardback for £22 plus shipping, which is not unreasonable for a book of this kind, a hardbound book on this kind of topic. Can often go for a lot more than that. Link will be in the show notes, of course. An itchy tasty history of Resident Evil by Alex O'Neill. So there you go.
All right, so I sent them back a reply saying, yes, we've mentioned your site before. It's fascinating for us to see, what we never knew existed, and we'd love to talk to you. So hopefully we'll be able to get them on. One from Sean Stevenson here. Dentist acquires $1.02 million worth of retro treasures. All right. What did he buy? And Sean says, $1 million. Really? Well, what did he get for $1 million, right? I think there's $1 million of games out there. A dentist named Eric Neyerman sunk $1.02 million, some first edition sticker seal games in September. It was one of the biggest biggest money sales in gaming history. Okay. Neyerman picked up about 40 factory sealed Nintendo games in the $1 million haul, of which were assembled by 3 collectors and took 52 combined years to amass them. All right. The games include 1986's Mario Brothers arcade version and the only known copies of 1985's Golf, 1986 Balloon Fight, and 1986 Gumshoe. Okay. Now, here's the deal. Let's say I was going to drop $1 million on games. And I a lot of times believe in quality over quantity, no doubt. Okay, things sold by the ounce are much more than things sold by the pound, right? So I'm not saying I'd buy the most volume I could for a mill, but do I want, I don't know, 40 sealed Nintendo games? I'm looking at the shelf here in the studio, and I see about 40 games. Do I want to look at that and go, well, there's my million? Or for $1 million, a mil oh 02 if you're going to, have the extra bit there. For a mil oh 02, you could build a 2-story, 50,000 square foot facility and fill it full of pins and vids and have the most epic, private arcade ever. Or you could have a shelf with some sealed games. I mean, what are you going to do? Open them up and play them? Maybe it's an investment, right? In the future, maybe he plans to sell it for $2 million and double his money. I don't know. It's his money, but it does seem a little odd.
It does. That was also sent in by Peter Gibbs, and for that kind of money, you could build my house twice and still have 200 grand left for a game collection. Wow. Unreal. And stay in school, kids, because dentistry is the way to go by the looks of things.
Dude, that's literally what the new place out in Vegas is costing. Plus, I could populate it with games. Yeah. I mean, that's a mil two. I mean, come on, Yeah. I don't know, man. I mean, like I say, it's his money, but rather than sealed, unplayable game, if he's doing it for investment, okay, he's got some foresight that there'll be ever another guy that comes along that'll pay that much. So, we'll see.
Well, speaking of cheaper games, this one sent in by me. It's from Racket Boy, who do some good articles. And this is the best Sega Saturn games under $35. Nights into Dreams, $19 to $30 apparently. Panzer Dragoon, Virtual On, Cyber Troopers, Daytona USA, which is a lot cheaper, $6 to $15 and worth every cent of that. Sega Rally Championship, again, worth every cent. Virtua Fighter, bit janky these days, but I guess so. Clockwork Knight, Street Fighter Alpha 2, Night Warriors, Darkstalker's Revenge, not played it. Fighters Megamix, not played it, probably never will. Baku Baku, great puzzle game, $15 to $27 range. You could probably get other versions of it much cheaper. The Master System, I wonder if that's a cheaper version than that. Galactic Attack, Darius Gaiden, Tempest 2000, X-Men Children of the Atom, Alien Trilogy, that had to be in there, of course, Virtua Cop and Virtua Cop 2. All very affordable and mostly good Saturn games.
I got a Sega Saturn around here. I don't play it much, but I got it.
Yeah, I keep mine for about 5 games, and I think they're all drivers. All drivers and exhumed.
It's just not a favorite system of mine. It's not. It's a Sega system, which I generally like, but it's just kind of it wasn't a lot there then, not a lot there now kind of system. Got one here that I think is pretty cool. How to make a Mega Drive Genesis game in 2019. And it's from a guy named Dr. Ludos. And he says here, whenever I complete a project, I like to write a post-mortem personal feedback articles about them. As my 3 Mega Drive Genesis games are now available on a cartridge, I wrote down a detailed feedback of my experience about making games on this wonderful console with modern tools. You can read about it here. And there's a link. Now, this is something that we talked about when we did CG Adventures, right? We talked about how many people were on a team, how we divided it up, how each person did it. We talked about like the weekly builds that would come out, and this is added, that's added, this is happening, and all the tying it together that Byte Night did. individual, artwork that was delivered, and it was just a heck of an inside world view to see how a game is developed from the idea of, hey, that Def CD thief. Wouldn't it be funny if we made a video game about it where uh, it plays out in the 8-bit world? And then, of course, Byte and I is like, yeah, we could do that. And then we start expanding out the discussion to other people. Next thing you know, we're making it. And then we ended up with the final product. So I'm going to give this a read. I imagined it would be pretty darn cool.
Someone else has made a game here. I'm sure I've mentioned this before. I don't know if it's the same game or a sequel. Weed Shop 3, the Cannabis Dispensary Simulator. An immersive open-world weed business management game with a zany storyline and FPS action. It is being crowdfunded, so let's have a look at the project, see how it's doing. It's on Kickstarter. Wow, they're asking for just short of £28,000, and they're at 42 at the moment with 7 backers and 25 days to go. So still plenty of time to get in on it if you want to simulate running your own cannabis dispensary.
They are officially at 0% of goal.
Yeah.
7 backers. 7. And yeah, well, good luck with that.
Yeah.
Dude, this is bogus. Nobody cares about our game.
Far out, man. Another new game here. A new Game Boy game for the console's 30th birthday. Dear RGR hosts, as you may know, this year the Game Boy console turns 30. To celebrate this, I made a new Game Boy game titled DMG Deals Damage. You play as a Game Boy. In brackets, DMG is the original model code name, who must smash other mobile devices who stole her birthday cake. It's kind of an action roguelite game with 30 rooms to fight through, including 4 bosses to defeat. You can play it online for free. You can download the ROM. You can download the manual. Or it's also available on cartridge if you want to play it on a real Game Boy and support the person who's done it, who is Dr. Ludos. I don't know if he's a real doctor. I hope he is. But looking at the game here, there's some animated GIFs of the gameplay. And yes, you're on a single screen and there's doors into other rooms and you play a Game Boy smashing other mobile devices, Nokias, PSPs, that kind of thing, Microvision, smartphones. So, neat idea. Haven't had a chance to play it yet. I did download it. But, yeah, thank you for sending it to us. Dr. Ludos. Might not be a real doctor.
Might be. So, Mike, we got one here that we're going to have to check out. I'm going to forward this, once I find the button, to random, not rabid. Crap. I thought I had his address here in the book. Do you know Random's address off the top of your head?
I think he'll see it. I think news forwards to him, so he sees them as they come in. So
if he comes in here and looks. A lot of times I don't look until the day before.
No, it'll go to his own email. I think him and Sparkle have a forwarder, so they see it. In fact, I do as well, just in case news is down.
Let's do this. This sounds like something these guys would do. Let's message them and have them. We got a download here from...
I've sent it to him. I've got his address in cache, so... Oh, no, I'm sending the wrong one. Cancel that and send the right one. So I'll forward it to him now.
All right. So these guys have released a game, and it's called Valfaris. And obviously we don't have enough time to download it and play it off the bat. So we're going to forward it to those guys, which I think are the ideal guys to take it up and give us their opinion.
Sent it to them both. So only a couple left here now. This one came from Us versus Them. And it says, Disney is quietly placing classic Fox movies into its vault. Does what it says on the tin. I'm just trying to scroll down and see what some of the movies are. The Omen. I don't know if you've seen that series of films, Scott, from the 70s. There were 3 of them.
Yeah, I back then, I can't say I've kept up with it.
Yeah. The Fly. What else is there? Oh, no. It's, when did it... Oh, no, it is. They got denied at first, but I think they're coming. Beneath the Planet of the Apes, Zardos, The Day the Earth Stood Still, Suspiria.
The Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Yeah. Suspiria. If you've not seen Suspiria, it's a film you should watch for one scene, really. And if you do watch it, you'll know the scene. Or you could go on YouTube and just search for Suspiria. You'll find the scene I'm talking about. Phantom of the Paradise, not one I know. Princess Bride, woo. Moulin Rouge, woo. Fight Club, I've never seen Fight Club. Don't know if I want to. But there's quite a few Fox films that Disney are adding to their streaming service that I'll never use.
Yeah, probably not going to happen.
And finally, it had to be this month, I guess, from Sean Stevenson. The best of us are, he says, because Unix is 50. Happy birthday, Unix. Unix celebrates 50 years. Today and tomorrow. This was posted on October 22nd. Nokia Bell Labs is hosting a 2-day event celebrating 50 years of the Unix operating system, reflecting on its past and exploring the future of computing. Speakers and panelists include many of the original team that built Unix and designed the C programming language. I shall add those to my watch later list, and then I'll watch them later.
Yeah, that Unix, I mean, yeah, 50. It's funny how some of these numbers didn't seem all that big at the time. Like, I remember when computer space first turned, 30, and then it was like 50. There's a 50-year-old video, 40-year-old video game, 50-year-old operating system. It's kind of funny, because this tech was all so new, when we were young. And as we get older, it ages with us. So it's just going to get harder to maintain and harder to find parts for. So get it while you can.
Get it while you can, indeed. Which brings us to the end of news. So Sparkle wasn't able to drop in. Random's feeling sorry for himself on a couch somewhere. But
Protein.
we made it. We made it.
We did.
So, just before I hustle Scott to get the hardware flashback in before the end of the month, we shall bid you farewell. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for listening for another month. And we will see you again next month. Happy Halloween, everybody.
Happy Halloween.